What's up, everybody? I'm Kirk. Welcome back to the channel, and happy Realms Deep. Developed by T19 Games and published by 1C Entertainment, Dread Templar was revealed to the masses as Hell Hunt during last year's Realms Deep. And despite the name change, the concept has remained the same, being an FPS heavily influenced by 90s classics like Quake that brings in some modern features to sweeten the experience. I had a chance to play the Steam Next Fest demo of the game some months back, and offer my first impressions. I came away from the demo positive, but I did have my concerns. Mostly in how much this game would stick out in the current deluge of similar boomer shooters, and if the modern features were there to improve the core retro FPS experience, or were just tacked on to convince somebody to click that buy button. Now with the game hitting early access, just in time for Realms Deep, I finally have some answers to my concerns. So sharpen your swords, keep your eyes peeled for secrets, and maybe pack a stain remover for all that blood. It's time to descend into Dread Templar. But before all that, if you're new here and you're digging what you're seeing, please consider subscribing and liking to help support this channel. Alrighty, let's get started. This early access build features the first 2 episodes with 5 missions each. The full release is currently slated for 2022. In Dread Templar, you play as a Templar who is full of dread. A hell-bent man, both figuratively and literally, intent on getting his revenge and willing to charge into the fiery depths of hell to get it. And you know what? That's all I pretty much have on the story. Yeah, right now narrative is basically non-existent in this build. There's no intro movie or text setting everything up, interludes, or even an ending paragraph to hype the next episode. What you get is what you glean from gameplay or read off of the Steam page, like I did. I'm sure something is on its way for a future update. This is the first EA build after all. But yeah, I'm a little bummed. I want to know what's going on. Who is the Templar? Why is he seeking revenge? Who's the bad guy? Satan? Stephen Waite? The Doom Bunny? At the very least, some basic world building would be nice. Well, then again, I guess graphics carry a lot of that weight as well. Visually, Templar achieves that mid-90s retro look. Polygons are simple and sharp, and textures are crispy and pixelated. It's a convincing throwback, with the bloom lighting and ragdoll physics the obvious clues of it being a modern game. The art direction goes for satanic gothic horror, but also brings in hints of cosmic Lovecraft. It mostly works. Episode 1 is the visual highlight, a descent into crypts of brown stone and rusted metal, adorned with rotting flesh and tortured victims with the occasional glow of hell furnaces. It's a familiar look, meant to remind one of Quake and Doom. It holds little surprises, but it is executed well, with some nice detail throughout. The only negatives being some awkward texture placements and the occasional bit of missing geometry. Episode 2 is where I have issues. I like the idea here, trying to mix the aesthetics of gothic horror with cosmic horror, but the result is a little boring. The problem is, while there's a good amount of texture variety in the exteriors and interiors, they are all shaded in a similar color, which causes a lot of spots to feel monotonous, like these inner crypts that look like tunnels of gravel. Sure, the pink and purple lighting does help break this up and give some character to it all, but even that starts to become a detractor, with later levels featuring hallway after hallway, area after area lit in a sea of purple, and it ends up feeling just as monotonous. To be fair, there is a mission towards the end of episode 2 where you battle through a hell factory with pink ooze flowing throughout. That I thought looked pretty cool. Otherwise, episode 2 was just not working for me visually. I do like the enemy designs. The rotting undead have some awesomely necrotic detail to them if you get a closer look. And the mutants of episode 2 are certainly unsettling, with their gray skin and bulging eyeballs. The music is also delightful. I have a feeling Templar's composer likes to stay nice and caffeinated, because this music is bouncing off the walls. It's a varied soundtrack that gives the game a sort of manic personality, and I think it fits. One moment it's thrashing power chords, the next a choir singing a beautiful melody of doom. Then suddenly, synthesizers. Dread Templar's gameplay is old school through and through, but a reinvigorated old school, as if it were on a diet, has been spending time with a personal trainer, and just took up a new hobby. This is due to a focus on classic design, with some modern touches to help sweeten the experience. As is the usual, combat is fast-paced and furious, constant movement and twitchy reflexes the key to success. Aiding your mobility is a modern dash mechanic, comparable to the one from Doom Eternal both in its quality feel and usefulness, allowing players to dodge attacks and giving them some help in platforming sections, which Templar features a good amount of. Shooting is nice and tight, and there's a good sense of power and feedback coming from your weapons. No reward is better than seeing geysers of blood spew from enemies after some furious clicking. Your dopamine receptors will be happy. Enemies are pretty standard. You have rushing fodder types, projectile shooters, grenade throwers, and floaters. No surprises, but also no negatives. Episode 2, though, is where we meet the trickier beasts. Hooded shamans that spawn purple fodder and homing skulls, as well as giant angelic brutes who can hit scan you with their lasers. But as any shooter fan knows, it's not about the individual enemies, it's about the combinations of them, and Templar is always mixing and matching its enemies to test the player, which helps keep the combat fresh. Templar features a solid roster of weapons, hitting the classic archetypes while also giving a few a unique spin. You start with pistols akimbo, which absolutely slap, featuring a rapid fire and chunky feel. If you notice, every time you fire, the screen pushes in ever so slightly to give them some extra oomph. No complaints here. Their variant, the twin submachine guns, which I'm going to refer to as the Max from here on out, were one of my go-tos, where the pistols slap, the Max tear, ripping through enemies with a low bassy hum. The pump-action shotgun doesn't satisfy as much as the pistols. Its firing animation and sound effect not as punchy as I'd like, but the power is certainly there. Its double-barrel variant, the Super Shotgun, puts it to shame. A force to be reckoned with, its wide blast of hot shards easily turning the undead into cherry custard. Oh, in case you happen to notice, you can quick swap weapons in this game, at speeds that would make the Slayer envious. Finding powerful quick swap combos is a key strategy in this game, or at least it was for me, like softening up a zombie with a hail of bullets and finishing the job with a shotgun punch to the face. And there are enemies that definitely call for it, like these hulking twin-bladed brutes who are best put down by the aforementioned combo. The drawback here is that the rapid switching does not cancel reload animations, which can put a speed bump in the combat flow. This may seem like an oversight, but it actually plays into one of the core systems of the game, which we'll be discussing shortly. Anyways, back to the weapons. This wrist-bound instrument lets you lay electrified trap darts that will stun enemies and allow you to get some free hits. It's easy to ignore this guy in favor of good old-fashioned bullets, but if wisely used, it can make a big difference in the tougher fights. Past that, we have the Infernal Rocket Launcher and the Infernal Revolver, which, despite having awesomely exquisite designs, behave as you'd expect and as they should. The rocket goes boom, and the revolver is slow to fire, but powerful and accurate. Both are good to have in the arsenal. And for our BFG, we have the Infernal Fist. Charge it up and let her rip, and you'll be treated to a giant rocketing fire fist that will liquefy all in its path. Yep, nothing better than giving these corpses a good fisting. Rounding out the arsenal are two special weapons, your katanas and the black bow. Katanas are your standard melee type, but put them together and they become a javelin, able to one-shot much of the enemy roster. It doesn't get old. Usage comes with a cooldown though, so don't expect to get spammy with it. The black bow, which gives me both Turok and Far Cry vibes, essentially takes up the spot of the sniper rifle, launching a powerful arrow that can insta-kill some enemies with a headshot. The bow stands apart from the other weapons in terms of how its ammo is handled. Your quiver only holds at least 4 arrows at a time, and each arrow has its own individual cooldown, which, like the katana, will keep the player from spamming it. But at least it's nice to always have a sniper available when you need it, and a weapon to fall back on if you run out of ammo. During combat, you may notice your kills filling up this blue meter at the top of the screen. Fill her up and you can activate bullet time, slowing everything down and, of course, letting you dodge bullets. Bullet time is one of those classic features I always appreciate seeing, but I have to be honest, I plain kept forgetting I had it. Truth is, there weren't many combat situations where I felt I needed it, at least not until towards the end of the game, and even then I kinda had to remind myself. Hopefully that will change with future updates. Level design is mighty fine. Templar's missions are good old-fashioned key hunts. Variety and flow is nailed here. Missions are always finding ways to throw players into differing combat situations, whether they be corridor bloodbaths, arena assaults, and vertical volleys. And the flow of these hell havens makes navigating them a breeze, with emphasis on speed and excitement, with enemy placements designed not to scare, but surprise. And whenever the player finds a means of progression, like picking up a key, there's always a clever way to quickly get them back to the critical path. Love it. One aspect that makes them especially fun are the side areas. Each level has an optional side area, accessible through these glowing red breakable walls. Within these areas, you'll meet tougher combat challenges and tricky platforming obstacle courses, with a plethora of rewards for the player who decides to brave them. They remind me a lot of the Slayer gates from Eternal, although not nearly as tough. But the highlight of every level, the secrets. Secrets are spectacular in this game, and each mission has a ton of them. Some are easy to spot, some are insanely subtle. I'm sure the dev takes a lot of pride in their hiding skills, as they should. What's real neat though is that while you have secrets, you also have super secrets. Finding super secrets is a lot more elaborate, requiring the player to hunt down clues in the environment and do some light puzzle solving. I enjoyed the break from combat to solve these little brain teasers because A, when solved, the presentation of the super secret is super cool, and B, because the rewards are always epic, like getting a high-powered weapon way earlier in the game. Secrets also happen to benefit the game in another way, but we'll touch on that in just a sec. Saving is handled a little differently. Sorry peeps, no quick saves here. Saving can only be done at fixed save crystals, which for me stirred up visions of spiky hair and buster swords. It's not my favorite thing in the world. Fixed saves and bad checkpoints is the fastest way to suck the enjoyment out of a shooter, but in Templar's case there was little frustration. Save points were common, fairly and logically placed, and there is auto-saving before key points in every level, which is nice. However, saving and loading is one of the buggier aspects of this build. Quick loading after a death has a tendency to outright fail, with the load screen getting stuck and the only solution to quit to the main menu and reload from there. Auto-saving was never a problem except for the one time it was, triggering right in the middle of a pretty fierce firefight, resulting in me reloading right in between two monsters that would insta-kill me over and over. Not great. And one time I saved, died, and when I reloaded, I was transported to the beginning of the level. My progress was still reflected, but for some reason, I had to hike all the way back to where I was, crossing my fingers for some patches here sooner than later. At this point, I think it's safe to say that Dread Templar checks all of the boxes for what makes a solid retro shooter. But there is one last feature I have yet to talk about that I think allows this game to take a step further than some of its peers. An upgrade system, simple and straightforward in its implementation, that can have some big effects on the gameplay. Accessible from these statues scattered throughout each level, on the upgrade screen, your character, along with his weapons, each have 3 slots in which various abilities can be assigned and switched out. To unlock a slot, you must collect a certain amount of blood gems, which are hidden throughout each level. The upgrades themselves, represented by Templar emblems, have to be collected within levels as well. The first 2 slots, holding only white emblems, represent standard run-of-the-mill improvements. For your character, these are things like increased health or longer-lasting bullet time, and for weapons, increased attack power, more ammo, and faster firing rates. But it's that third slot, reserved only for the gold emblems, where things get interesting. Gold emblems are essentially combat perks, able to change the function of their corresponding weapon and sometimes even the weapon itself, allowing the player to experiment with different combat builds. Here's some examples of what I mean. The Bulletstorm emblem cancels the reload animations for both the pistols and the max. Obviously, this allows you to keep firing with no interruptions, but also makes weapon switching a lot more effective without the reload animation getting in the way. Sniper Shotgun does as the name implies, increasing the range of the shotgun and narrowing its dispersion, making it behave more like a high-powered rifle. I Live Again, a tribute to a bloody classic, allows you to shoot the barrels of the Super Shotgun individually, giving you more control. But a real badass example is Hellscream, which transforms the pistols into the dual Hellscreams, capable of shooting through multiple enemies, the only drawback being a slower fire rate. Most of the weapons have several gold emblems to choose from, opening up numerous combat possibilities, giving players a lot of room to play around and tailor a style most comfortable to them. Well, that is assuming they took the time to find all the emblems and the blood gems, but that in and of itself greatly bolsters this game's replay value. The main way you find blood gems and emblems is by completing the side areas and discovering secrets, super secrets in particular. Therefore, serious players will be motivated to go back and fully complete these missions and reap their benefits. And in this light, it makes sense why the developer put so much effort into making the secrets so damn cool. You gotta make it fun for the players that are willing to put in the effort. Now, while I dig this system, it does leave me with some pressing questions. The obvious one is, how much will this upgrade system be pushed in future updates? How many more emblems are planned? And how much further can we customize our Templar? But the big question for me is, what does this system mean for the post-game? Right now, Templar does let you go back to previous levels and replay them, strictly within the difficulty you beat them in. And yes, you can totally use the emblems you've gained, which is awesome. However, you can only use the weapons you had when you first played that level. So if you go back to the first mission, you can only use the pistols, but they can be switched out for the Hellscreams. It is kind of a bummer though, and what I'm hoping is that this indicates a future New Game Plus mode, or something equivalent, where you can start from the beginning with your full arsenal and roster of emblems, and hopefully take on more enemies, tougher enemies, and in trickier combinations. The way I see it, the game gives you all this flexibility in the upgrade system, so it should give you a lot of avenues to test it. I came away from Dread Templar more impressed than I expected. What we have here is a fun, finely crafted retro shooter that does indeed manage to deepen the experience with its simple but robust upgrade system. The only drawbacks, the non-existent story, uneven presentation, and bugs. All things that can be worked on and improved for future updates. The core is there, and it's going to be fun to see where this game goes next. There's a lot of possibilities, and I think the devs should run wild with it. Go crazier with the secrets, get more elaborate with the level design, and take that upgrade system to the nth degree. If you're a hardcore retro shooter fan, check this one out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And if you're new to the genre or a lapsed player, this is a good title to get you up to speed. But what do you think of Dread Templar? Is this something that's speaking to you, or is this one trip into hell too many? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for future uploads. It's a couple clicks for you, but a massive help for this channel. And be sure to come say hi in the Kirk Collects Discord, linked in the description. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.